Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Oni, Dr. Oni, and as most of you know, I am a first-year resident physician. In this video, I will be talking about various ways that you could pay or start thinking about paying back those private loans that you probably took for med school or undergrad or graduate school or whatever the case might be. I remember personally while taking those loans, every single year I had to take those loans, you guys, I was stressed. Taking private loans is something that is actually frowned upon if you are a citizen or a permanent resident here. However, for international students, we don't exactly have many options. So most of us are subjected to take private loans, and that was like the only option that I had. So in this video, I will be going over different ways that you can start thinking about paying back those private loans, things that kind of like helped me really decrease my anxiety when it came to taking these loans, and things that I've also shared with my mentees that they found helpful. Disclaimer, I am no financial expert. Like I'm such a huge illiterate when it comes to financial stuff. Okay, like these things that I'm sharing are just things that from my personal research, from being so anxious about taking loans, I found things that I have talked about to people who are also in the same boat as me. I just don't want you guys having so much like anxiety when it comes to taking loans, which is why I'm making this video. So the first thing I want to say is just like I did in my last video, try your best to take things one step at a time. Like I cannot overemphasize that. While I was taking my loans, sometimes like after I'm done applying for the loan, I'm seeing the interest rates on these loans. I'm like, oh my God, like how in the world am I gonna pay this back? The biggest thing that you can do for yourself, because that was not a good thing for me, is just take it one step at a time. Don't think about like paying for the loans when you're still in med school. When you're in med school, take as much money as you need. Like this is a big thing. Obviously, don't like spend stupidly, but at the same time, make sure you're actually taking what you need and not taking less than what you need, because the last thing that you want to be a stressor on you on top of med school is money. Like seriously. Already taking so much money in loans already. Like if it's just that extra $1,000 that's going to make you a little bit more comfortable and more focused on your books, take the extra $1,000. Like what is 1,000 compared to $80,000 that you're taking? If there's no one that's going to be able to provide you that money, like family wise, then take as much as you need. When it's time to pay, it's time to pay. But in the meantime, focus on what you're doing. Be the best medical student that you can be. Be the best resident that you can possibly be, because all of those things set you up for success. If you need residency loans, take the residency loans. You don't want to be struggling with money. 90% of doctors are literally in this position as you are. I'm going to insert a video here so you can see that like this is a general, feeling by a lot of people.
I went to school for 10 years and it cost roughly $500,000.
4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, and I'm now making it rain with $200,000 of debt.
532,342 hours.
Which equates to approximately 12 years. I'm in debt. I'm still in debt.
I only had about $160,000 in debt, which is notably less than the average, but still a lot of money.
16 years.
In school and training to be a urologist.
I ended up with around $300,000 in debt.
20 years until I've reached the most senior level here.
$309,820 in student loan debt. A number that still haunts me to this day.
Basically, if these many doctors are like, oh my God, like how are we gonna pay this? This is a stressor. Just know that there are options to alleviate that stress, and a lot of people are dealing with this. You're not the only one, and it's gonna be okay. I promise you are gonna be okay. Okay, you are going to be okay. All right, enough of my like little pep talk. I don't know why this is what ends up making my video super long, because I sit here just giving pep talks, but okay. You would hear like a good number of like anecdotes of people who paid off their loans in like 3 years to 5 years. Some people go as far as like, paying it over 20 years, over 30 years, over like their entire lifetime. Do you have a spouse who could help you, or is there family that could help you? All of that just boils down to the circumstances that you're in, where you are financially. Such a personal journey is just going to end up being like what's most comfortable for you. So these are different ways that you could try to pay off some of those loans. First thing you hear people do is refinancing. At first I was like, what is refinancing? I didn't really know much about it. So what refinancing means is pretty much getting a second loan to replace the first loan that you took, but on a lesser interest rate. So for example, if bank A gave you like $40,000 on 10% interest rate, bank B might offer to give you the same $40,000 but on like a 3% interest rate. And what happens is bank B just pays bank A whatever you're owing them, and then you have that new loan with bank B and you're paying off those loans on a lesser interest rate, which in total decreases how much you're going to owe in like the next few years or in the long run. What other people do sometimes, because you're going to notice by the time you're done with med school, if you applied every year, you're going to have different loans with different interest rates. Like I have like 6 different interest rates right now, ranging from like 5% to like 10%. And so sometimes what people do is they just like put all that money together. So let's say your full loan is like $250,000 for the total amount that they're owing. So they apply for $250,000 and then probably get like a decreased interest of like 3% to pay off all the loans. And so that bank pays off all the banks that you're owing, and then you just focus on that one bank and just keep paying that amount every month. Next thing you could do is start paying off a little during residency. Now this is for people who are like super anxious about paying off, they just want to get it out of their hair. They don't want to have to think about it. There's 2 subsets of people. There's people who don't care. Some people prefer to put money into like mortgage or owning assets or things that are actually going to give them monetary value, or starting businesses over paying off those loans. And others are like, you know what, let's just get this out of the way and then focus on getting to those assets. Again, this is just like different people, what works for them. But if you're someone who's like super anxious and you really want to get these loans out of the way, you can start planning to pay off a little during residency. And you don't have to break your back doing this. Honestly, you really don't have to break your back doing this. You can put a little bit down every month. Put out like $200 a month and just put it into the loan. You don't even have to do that a month. You could try to save a little bit every month. If let's say this month was like a really bad month and all you could save was like $100, then that's cool. And then the next month maybe was a better month and you were able to manage your finances better, or you just didn't have as many financial responsibilities and you were able to save, up to $500, and you put out that $500. And then at the end of the year, maybe you've amounted like $2,000 to $3,000. And so you could just put that lump sum of money into your loans, and it would at least cover a little bit of your interest for the year. Even if it doesn't cover that much, it's still covering something, right? So that's a way that you can, pay off a little during residency. Moonlighting, guys, like this one. So what is moonlighting? That is an extra way that residents can make money while in residency. We all know that the residency pay is really not that much, especially for how much you have to pay back in loans if you're paying your loans every month. And with residency, there is absolutely no time to do a second job. You're working like 80 hours a week usually. So moonlighting is just an extra way that hospitals employ residents to make extra money. Different hospitals around the area could employ a resident to just, cover the hospital for them for like a certain number of shifts, and then you make a lot more per hour. It could be like 12-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts, it could be nights. And instead of getting paid your regular residency salary, which is technically like $8 to $13 an hour, you're actually making like attending salary money, which could be like $100, $150. For some places it could be up to $200. It's very dependent on the program, it's dependent on the specialty. And so talking to people during my interviews and just talking to like senior residents, a lot of people told me that they had this option to moonlight, and sometimes they would just do 12-hour shifts and they're able to get like $2,000 just from one shift, or $1,500 from one shift. And that's typically the amount you make in 2 weeks, and you're just able to get that in one shift. I literally had, and I still remember this conversation in one of my interviews, one of the senior residents to me was like, oh, they had somebody in the program who was actually able to pay off their whole student loan from just raking a lot of moonlighting hours. Like they did so many hours, and they were able to actually pay off their loans. Of course, that comes with like taking out the little time that you have, which is not a lot. You could do that like twice in a month and you're able to make like $4,000 extra. By the end of the year, you've probably paid up to $40,000 of your loans, and by the end of the 3 years, you probably have paid up to $120,000 of your loans, which is a lot. So while you're looking for residency programs, you can definitely look into programs that have moonlighting options for its residents. So those are the ways you can pay off in residency. As an attending, when you are finally making a lot more money, it's a lot more doable. And at that point, it's really just up to you to decide how you want to pay it. Do you want to pay it off in the next 3 years? You rather like pay a little bit every month and, you know, extend it for the next 20 years? It's really all up to you to decide. Again, this is all a personal journey. As an attending, regardless of what field you're going to, like, you're going to be able to pay off or pay back your loans, because people are like, oh, they don't want to go into primary care because they don't make as much and they do a lot of work, which is absolutely true. Primary care physicians deserve a lot more than they're getting paid because they honestly do a lot. But we forget that we are comparing these amounts to other doctor amounts, and in comparison to what the average is paid, these are huge amounts that you are getting paid on average in comparison. So you will be comfortable, okay? My little 2 cents. What people tell you to do, and it's been proven, and a lot of people who are actually able to pay off their loans very quickly did this, was living as a resident. Try living as a resident for the first 2-3 years as you're an attending. And when we say live as a resident, it doesn't mean you're gonna be broke. Like, it doesn't mean you're gonna be broke. It just means that you may not necessarily start living extravagantly or, you know, living luxuriously yet. So if traveling is important to you, you could try to like make, you know, traveling as one big thing that you're probably going to splurge on. If cars are important to you, then make the cars the one thing that you're going to splurge on. If your house is important to you, then make the house the one thing you're going to splurge on. But you don't have to splurge on a lot of things. I feel like usually as an attending, because the amount that you're like, it's such a huge difference, a huge gap in the amount that you're making. Like as a resident, you were making like $60K, and as an attending, if for example you got into anesthesia, you're making like $300,000 or $400,000. That's like 5 to 7 times more than what you were making, you know. So it's the difference is huge, and so you want to splurge. Just remember that you can honestly live as a resident. Try to put a lot of that money into your loans if what's important to you is getting those loans out of the way as quickly as possible. If, for example, you're getting paid, let's say, even if it's not anesthesia salary, let's say like it's $250, which I think is what internal medicine doctors get paid on average. Let's say with taxes, you take home like $190 or something. You can take $90,000 and let that be your amount for the year. That's what you're going to use. That's still $30,000 more than you were getting as a resident, and you still have an extra $100,000 that you could just throw into your loans fully, right? And if you have like $300,000 in loans and you're putting in $100,000 every year, in 3 years, 3 to 4 years, you're pretty much done paying off those loans. These are huge amounts. I'm talking someone who's making $250,000 a year and has $300,000 in loans. If we're talking about someone who's making $500,000 a year and we're talking about like $300,000 in loans, you can still take $120,000 out of your $500. You're still gonna have like $400 or $380 left that you could just toss into your loans and still have extra money. Does that make sense? Like, it's just really, you decide for a year, okay, I'm going to not splurge, and you can make it work. Another thing that you can do as an attending, which I've heard, is take extra hours. As an attending, you're going to realize you're working much less hours as compared to a resident. Much less hours. If you, for example, go into medicine and you're a hospitalist, right? Typically for most of the schedules, you're working like 7 days on, 7 days off, where you work for a full week, Monday to Sunday, and then the next week you're off, and then the next week you're on. And compared to where you were working in residency, this is so much better. You can decide that the week that you're off, you can get something like part-time and work 3 to 4 days of those days that you're free. If, let's say, currently with your 7 day on 7 day off schedule, you're making $250,000. If you were able to do a part-time job working like remote, which is what some people do, they do telemedicine, or sometimes they work in rural areas part-time, and sometimes you get more money when you work in rural areas. You're making half of $250,000, right? I'm just saying approximately, which is $125,000. That's an extra money that you're getting throughout the year. Like, yes, you are going to be stressed. You probably only have like a few days off, you know, every month. But if you're able to make $125,000 extra, that can just go straight to your loans. Again, this is if you're super about wanting to pay off those loans. Now, as an international, or if you're on a visa, it might be harder for you to get, you know, those extra like jobs that would sponsor you. I'm not entirely sure how that process works. I'm not entirely sure if we're able to do 2-3 jobs. I think all jobs would have to sponsor you, but I'm pretty sure it's doable. I'm just tossing these options just because I want y'all to know that it's doable and it's okay to take those loans. I'm not trying to have y'all like take crazy amount of loans. Relax. You still have to be financially responsible, and you still have to think before you take out the money, but it's doable. Another thing that you're gonna notice, or you can do, is some companies and some rural programs are more than happy to pay off a certain amount of your loans. In fact, this is really an incentive that a lot of hospitals use to get attending doctors to work with them, especially in rural areas where there's less access to doctors. These programs will be more than happy to cover a certain amount of your loan if you sign a contract with them. And if you like the area, if you have family, like, that's pretty decent. I actually have a friend who I was just having a conversation with who is literally in my year. We're just first years, and she was telling me that she's even had a conversation with a hospital program that offered to pay off a certain amount of her loans if she worked with them for 3 years as a hospitalist. So those are also other options that exist as an attending when it comes to paying off these loans. If you guys can tell, my voice is cracking because when I talk for so long, I need to get water. So I'll be right back. So that's pretty much it when it comes to like the private loan stuff. If you have federal loans, oh my God, you guys, the options are so much better. Being an international student stinks. Like, it's actually smelly here. It smells like absolute shit. If you are an international medical student, like, first of all, let me just call for you. You deserve this. You deserve it. Like, the federal loaners, which is where I'm only doing this because I'm jealous, 100%, have a lot more options when it comes to paying back their loans. They have things like Repay, PSLF, which is, I honestly don't know too much about these things, but when I go for conferences where they're having these conversations, like, it's just something that I hear, like, my friends talk about it. I'm just looking at them like, that is pretty much it, you guys. I hope you found this super helpful. This video is just to let you know that it's doable. Don't sweat it. If your only option is to take private loans, go ahead and do it. There is a lot of options for you to pay back by the time you are in residency and you are unattending. Hopefully all of that makes sense, and hopefully this helps to decrease any anxiety that comes with taking loans. It was so nice chatting with you guys. Hope you found this helpful. Leave any questions in the comment section and I will respond. If you have any private questions for me, feel free to DM me on Hermed Series or send me an email at hermedseries@gmail.com. And yeah, I will see you guys on my next video. Stay blessed and stay safe, you guys. Love y'all.